Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is Sunday, the 16th of June. E3, I think, is now, well, if not officially over, it's going to be over very soon. And I have finished my exams. I have no beard. I have much less hair. I feel so much better. It's like all the stress has just sort of just washed away. And I had a lovely day yesterday in London, visiting the British Museum and again seeing some Swedish people and drinking bottles of Taittinger. It was a lovely day. Yeah. But I thought now that with all the other stuff that have been going on, I've obviously been watching E3, and I haven't had an opportunity to make a video or comment on anything because obviously I've been a little bit busy. But with that in mind, I thought I would give my thoughts on the various conferences, on the various games that were announced, things that are coming forward, things that really caught my attention. And I've entitled this video XBONED and PS PHWOAR because I think that rather sums up the nature of what happened at E3. Now, truth be told, on some level, I do think that we maybe get a little bit ridiculous when it comes to things like the console war and all this other sort of rubbish. But in terms of marketplace competition, I think you can't really come away from E3 2013 without saying three things. Number one, the Sony played an absolute blinder, and they knew exactly what they had to do, they knew exactly what they had to say. They waited for Microsoft to put themselves into a position where they were going to be perceived as being anti-consumer, over-expensive, etc, etc, etc. And then it was just a massacre in terms of PR hit after hit after hit after hit after hit. So let's discuss the two conferences in detail. So the Microsoft conference, in terms of what they showed, in terms of games, in terms of technology and all the rest of it, it was very, very competent. It was extremely slick. It was everything you would come to expect from a company that believes it has a product that people want, that it clearly believes in, and things people want to buy. But there were two obvious dud notes. Dud note number one was the price. $499, £450 is a lot of money for a game console. Now, particularly in today's environment when people haven't got a lot of cash. Now, why have they chosen that price? I think the answer is very obvious. It's the fact that the Kinect is bundled in the box. They want a Kinect in every single home. It's part of their strategy. The thing won't play without a Kinect, and so you have to have it. And it's a fairly bulky, clearly very, very good piece of technology. I mean, a lot of people have slated the Kinect for various reasons, but I think if you take the Kinect and you take it outside of the gaming environment, where I still don't think that there is anywhere near a compelling case to own one, but you put it into sort of AI development and that kind of stuff, what you come up with is a product that could be very, very useful. And in fact, there have been people, there was a guy who put a Kinect sensor on a little quadricopter and got the thing to fly around the room. The Kinect, in a sense, has a greater level of application outside of the gaming industry, because I just think that it's that kind of camera, and the fact that they've been able to, obviously they're mass producing this, and therefore the cost of the components goes down, etc, 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 giving people a tracking system that is so much more advanced than anything people would normally be able to get on the market, means that for people who are developing military applications, other scientific applications, there's a great reason to own a Kinect, there's a great reason to get one. Is there a great reason to get one if you're a gamer? No, I don't think so. Does anybody really like Kinect games? Not really, outside the casual market and the jumping up and down. But is your core gamer, who is the person you really need to buy a Kinect to get the install base going, really going to want to part with $499? $5 are required for all subscriptions, so even if you just want to use Netflix, you have to pay $5 a month to use the network, and then obviously you have to pay another subscription to use Netflix on top of that. Do they really want that? Do they want all these voice commands? Do they want the thing to be watching them? Do they want this thing to be constantly required to check in online? Do they want the DRM situation, which effectively doesn't allow you to just lend a game to your mate? From what we've seen, I mean, I say that there was some information published by Xbox a couple of weeks ago now, trying to clarify some of these points, and what it seemed to be saying, this idea of you can have up to 10 family members, but obviously it didn't define family members, so obviously you could include a friend in that. They had to be on your friends list for 30 days, which obviously means that the console, you can't do that from... Well, I don't know, actually. It depends if the friends list moves across. If it does, that'd be fine. But otherwise, you'd have to have people on there for a month before you could then start lending them stuff. You can only do it once. It just seems to be a huge amount of work and effort and workarounds for what should be a very simple process. And Microsoft have, particularly on the Connect and the DRM side of it, they've blown the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid, out of the water. The idea that I can just pick up a disc copy of the game and give it to somebody, and that's it, that's all they need to do in order to play that copy of the game. And Sony released a video on their used game policy, how to share a game. This video now has 11 million views. It is lethal in terms of the messaging. I mean, it's almost been vicious watching Sony go work. But anyway, we'll talk about more on that in a second. But other things about the Connect conference, about the Xbox conference. Yes, the price is too high. I think $499 is very high. As I said, it is because the Connect is in the box. Yeah, there was a new Halo. Yeah, Rise. Rise to me just looks like... The thing I really felt about the Xbox conference was that they were trying to answer all the points that Sony, all the markers I should say, that Sony has laid down during this generation. So, Spark. Let me just be honest. Spark is a flipping amazing piece of design. It's beautiful. It's a really, really, really clever idea. From click and play, which I'm not sure if that was Peter Molyneux actually. I might have to Google that and look that up. But there was all the old click and play idea that you could build a game. Obviously, Little Big Planet, you know, really revolutionised that on PS3. But then years later, Microsoft have now come out with Spark. But the problem again with it is it's all about peripherals. I mean, the thing is, they call this the Xbox One, but in order to use Spark, you really need smart glass, which means you're going to have to buy a Microsoft tablet, which means you're going to have to spend another couple of £100 or $100 in order to use this thing properly. And what they really want to do is they want to obviously create a single ecosystem which you exist in. And you have, you know, your smartphone is Microsoft, is Windows, your tablet is Windows, your game console is Windows, etc, etc, etc. But the problem is that we don't live in a situation like that. Our tablets and mobile devices are pretty much going to be one of Android or BlackBerry. And I know that, you know, Windows is a phone, but to be fair, in terms of what people are buying, they're buying Samsung Galaxy Tabs, they're buying Apple devices, and they might be buying Kindles and stuff like that, and like Kindle Fire and all this sort of thing. So Microsoft is introducing yet another layer on top of that, which is to say, here's a game like Spark, which looks really, really good. You need the console to buy it, you need to have all these other peripherals like the Connect to buy it, so that jacks the price up. But to get the most out of it, you need to have yet another thing. So it's constantly sort of, you know, putting in what I would call putting up barriers to play. They're putting up barriers to play every single time. You want to get the best out of this, you need to buy all of this stuff. So you're spending $600-700 just to be able to get the full functionality for a various thing. I'm not so sure about that, and I'm less sure overall, as an aside, on this whole using tablets to interface with games. But we'll come back to that in a second. Rise, to me, kind of following on what I've just said about, you know, Sony stealing a lead on Microsoft, Rise to me very much looked like Microsoft's attempt to answer the God of War hole, as it were, because they have nothing like that. There's nothing on Xbox, or there's been nothing on Xbox like a third-person hack and slash. I mean, there's been Castlevania Lords of Shadow. We'll talk about that maybe in a different video, because Lords of Shadow 2 is the game one of the games I am most excited for in this on the current systems. It's one of the few things I will still buy, because it's just I love Lords of Shadow. I love Castlevania. I hate GameSpot for giving it 6 out of 5 and saying, oh, it's not 2D. Anyway, anyway, back to topic. But yeah, it seems to me like they were like, right, we need a God of War game, so here's Rise. We need a Little Big Planet game. We need something to rival Media Molecule. Well, here's Spark. We need something to rival PS Plus. Here's 2 free games for your Xbox subscription. I mean, how flipping transparent was that? Everybody watching the conference at that point tweeted, PS Plus. And this is one of the things I think that people haven't realised with Sony over the last particularly the last 18 months, is that they have been laying foundations and laying the groundwork for various ideas which, when they all came together, would pay off into something that would give them an enormous lead. PS Plus, for example, Little Big Planet, all this sort of stuff, shows that Sony has a pedigree in this area, and Microsoft is trying to establish itself. Also, the big thing about indie development, carrot sticks, is that what that kind of says to me is that Microsoft is trying to get back to a state where, it's the indie home. But I don't think it can do that, and I particularly don't think it can do that given the showing at the Sony conference. Overall, like I said, it was good. There's some interesting stuff in there. I'm sure Forza is going to be brilliant. I'm sure Halo is going to be brilliant. I'm sure all these other games will look great and play incredibly well. But there's nothing there you haven't actually seen, aside from Sparks, which, like I said, also requires you to spend money on another Microsoft's peripheral, this smart glass, whatever. All of that is a bit uninteresting. They're also banking on cable when the number of cable subscriptions is going through the floor, but their biggest problem is that price point and the DRM policies, and the always online, the internet connection required, that kind of thing. They also need to get a new CEO, because Don Matrick has come out and basically done more damage, I think, to their own brand than anybody I've ever seen. I mean, this week, so for example, we had, I think Jeff Keighley tracked him down and asked him about, a very fair question. What happens to people who live in areas where there isn't high levels of internet connectivity, but we still would be happy to buy and play the Xbox One? And his response was, well, we have an offline platform. It's called the Xbox 360, and that is exactly the point that I was raising in my previous video when I said that they were the Abercrombie and Fitch of the gaming world. Microsoft has decided that it is an exclusive platform. If you're not wealthy, you don't have good internet connection, you don't have all of these various things, you're not able to buy smart glass, etc., etc., we don't really want you in our ecosystem. We are going after premium consumers. You can just sod off. And particularly for people serving overseas in the military, etc., who have traditionally taken consoles with them to play on when they're when they're off duty, I think that's a bit of a shocker, to be perfectly blunt. I think when you have to expend this much PR effort, when you are constantly releasing press releases that contradict one another, when you are coming up against hit after hit after hit on models that you have chosen, and I think there's a very, very good question here to ask. And there was no reason for Microsoft to do this. Why did they choose a fight? Why did they choose this fight when actually there was nothing in the industry at the moment that meant they had to choose this fight? I think they were banking on Sony doing the same thing. Sony haven't done the same thing, and it's left Microsoft in a really dangerous position. But let's come on to Sony. So we now had the reveal of the PS4. My first thought was, it's teeny. It's actually really quite mini. It's smaller than this Mac. I mean, it'll happily fit in a bag. I like that. Second question I had was, where the hell do you put the disk drive in? I can't be the only person to have looked at the PS4 and thought, where does the disc go? But I like the design. I like the rhombus shape. I think it looks kind of sexy. It's, like I said, it's very small. It's very slight. It's got an air of no fuss. I mean, it's got an air of no fuss, just games. And I think that's something where you can have that for free, Sony. No fuss, just games. But I think that's basically what they're aiming for. Look at this small, neat, very condensed package. This is what it does. This is what it costs. This is what it'll do. This is the other stuff it offers you. Here we go. And there were a couple of minutes. If you want to go onto the PlayStation YouTube channel and watch the conference, it's about 1 hour 57 in, where Jack Tretton comes back onto the stage, and for 4 minutes he just trolls Microsoft. He trolls them. No DRM on used games. You are perfectly at liberty to buy used games. No restrictions on having to log in. We don't have to see you logging in every 24 hours to authenticate you. Why? partly because they're not going to be getting as much income from advertising as Microsoft. I'm absolutely convinced, and I said this before, that the requirement to check in online via the Kinect is nothing to do with the game. It is everything to do with downloading, with uploading information on your response to various advertisements and your response to various promotions in terms of where you've looked at the screen, etc. That's what this is all about. This is all about trying to cross-sell you stuff based on your preferences. Well, Microsoft has chosen that model. It's going to blow up in their face. And I say that, it is blowing up in their face. There are megaton nuclear blasts going off every single second. But Tretton just came out and just trolled them. And the fact that, this is going to sound like a slightly strange thing to say, but bear with me, but the fact that the feature set of the PS3 is now effectively a selling point tells you something about how badly Microsoft have got this wrong. The fact that Sony are able to come out and say, yeah, we're not adding any new requirements. It's going to be it's effectively the same system as you've always had, the same model that you've always had. It's just sexier. It's got better graphics. The games are going to be much bigger, much more immersive, more interesting. Yeah, it's pretty much the same model. We just updated everything, and a crowd not only goes wild but starts chanting Sony, Sony, Sony. I think that kind of tells you. If you were Microsoft execs watching the Sony conference, your head would be in your hands. I mean, they ruined you to a degree that I don't think I've ever seen before. And then the price. Because there's no stupid Kinect, because you don't have to use smart glass or any of this other crap, they're able to come out and say this is a hardcore gaming console, $399. Have that. Have that, Don Matrick. Yeah. I think it was possibly one of the greatest demolitions of a competitor that I've ever seen. A competitor's console which is overpriced, overburdensome, puts too many barriers in the way to play. And again, that was one of Sony's big things. Passion for play. We're going to make it as easy as possible for you to play. With all the indie development stuff, I mean, it's just such an attractive option. There is, however, one downside, which was during the announcements about PS Plus. They announced that to use multiplayer on PS4 will require a PS Plus subscription. Now, this wasn't really picked up, I don't think, at the conference. I think people were sort of still in the euphoria of the DRM stuff, so it was clever of Sony to do that. This was the squirrel. This was the zinger that obviously you get in everything. Now, I've had a couple of days to think about it, and I actually don't think this is too much of a problem. The fact that the PS3 allowed you to play multiplayer online with no fees whatsoever was an amazing feature. But we live in a world in which maintaining these kind of networks is not cheap. Sony is a company. They are there to make a profit. I can't imagine how much money it actually costs them to maintain and build the PSN. And the truth is, this is not like Xbox Live. Xbox Live for the last couple of years, you've paid purely to use anything online. You want anything more than that, you have to pay again. We heard from Sony that Netflix, etc. will not be behind PS Plus, so it's no different. The only thing that's different is that if you want to use PS4 multiplayer, you have to pay. The reason I think is they want to get as many people onto PS Plus as they possibly can, and it makes perfect sense because it's good for their business model because they've got dedicated income every month. But the thing about PS Plus is it's actually a fantastic service. It's for people who you buy somebody. A PS3, somebody who's got, a very, might be very low income, you buy them a PS3 and you buy them a PS Plus subscription, they'll never need to buy a game. They'll never need to buy a game. They can just download all of these free things every month, as long as they keep the subscription. It's $5 a month, £5 a month, you get to play Dead Space, you get to play all this kind of stuff, and they even announced that, Drive Club is going to be exclusive, will be free to PS Plus members on launch. Now, it might be a slightly whittled down version of Drive Club, but the fact that you'll get to play that day one digitally just through having a PS Plus subscription is a really, really good draw. It's a really clever idea. Am I a little bit annoyed that you have to pay for multiplayer? Yes, because PSN being free was always one of the big selling points, but like I said, these networks are going to cost a lot of money, and particularly with things like Gaikai, if you are going to get this kind of instant streaming, the ability to drop into somebody else's game and play for them because they've got a problem. You know, all of that is going to require a hell of a lot of overhead, huge amounts of, you know, you're going to require lots and lots of engineers to be working full time to maintain, to build that service. Do I mind paying? Do I mind paying £5 a month so that they can do that? No, no. And it means that I'm also getting free stuff. I get all my saves uploaded to the cloud, so it means I don't have to worry about, you know, using up space on the hard drive. I think PS Plus is a fantastic sell. I think PS Plus might be one of PlayStation's strongest selling points at the moment. And I think the fact that Microsoft have now announced that, hey, you can get Assassin's Creed 2. Come on, guys! If you're going to give new games for free, you give current stuff. Again, Microsoft haven't learned. You've got to give the interesting stuff now so that people can get in. And I think PlayStation 4 is a fantastic sell. And I think that, yeah, I think it will actually be possibly quite hard to get hold of a console come Christmas time. So I'm going to place my pre-order now. And in addition to that, I am going to today be signing up to PlayStation Plus. Partly because I should have done it ages ago. I like the offers. I like all the stuff about cloud saves and all the rest of it, and the fact that it, you know, automatically updates you in the. I mean, I have to say, the fact that you pay to automatically update, I think that is a bit of a shit. I don't see why that isn't an automatic attachment to the basic product, but it'll do it. It's the cost of a Pret-a-Manger sandwich and a drink. It's nothing, and what you get for it is fantastic value. Like I said, I don't think there's ever been a better time to get into this stuff now. I will be buying a PS4, but for anybody out there who hasn't got a lot of money or hasn't got particularly good internet connection or any of this kind of stuff, well, not things, but if you're kind of tight on cash and you want to be able to provide your kid with a decent gaming experience for under 200 quid, I would say buy them a PS3, buy them a 2-year subscription to PS Plus, off you go. They can play forever. It won't cost you a thing. So yeah, Xbox got boned because the price is too high, and it's definitely PS4 for me. Beautiful little console. I love the blue, actually. I love the little blue thing and the rest of it, and I do hope that they might actually release some different versions of it. Can you imagine if they do a white PS4? I mean, that would be the sex. That would be a really sexy console. Other things to talk about. I like the idea of the new DualShock 4. Looks really, really sexy. Looks really interesting. I'm a little confused about where the start and select buttons are because they've moved them. So it'll be interesting to see how you do it. I mean, maybe the idea is you don't need it anymore because you can drop in, drop out just using the power button. But that would be interesting to have a look at. But yeah, definitely think Sony have blown everything out of the water. There were some fantastic games announced for the console. This 1888 looked very interesting. Mad Max looks very interesting. And here's something else which I thought I would never say. But of all the things announced for PS for the next gen from E3, the two things I think that at the moment that I'm most excited by are Watch Dogs. The more I see of Watch Dogs, the more interested I am in it. Then there was the other game from the Ubisoft conference whose name is completely distinct. I think it was called The Division. Okay, you know, another big open world, but beautiful, interesting. Liked it very much. It looked great. I thought it was a zombie game initially. I didn't realise that. I went back and read some of the source material and realised that it was actually a game about the fact that the Earth has been decimated. You know, has been, well, not decimated. That would only be 10%, but has, you know, huge numbers of humans have died due to a flu, and there's only a couple of people left, and they're all trying to sort of, you know, survive on their own. That looks quite interesting. And of course, there is a moral element to that, of course, which is that if you kill every time you kill somebody, you are further contributing to the problem of the human race. Ubisoft conference in general was gash. It was very weird and not funny at all. And they included a choking the chicken reference in their Rabid game. And I was like, you're seriously putting a choking the chicken reference in there? Okay. Weird. Other conferences, EA's conference was just typical EA. Hit. Dragon Age 3 looks great. I would have loved a reference to Mass Effect. I know we didn't get it. One other thing to say, Plants vs. Zombies Garden Assault, or Garden Warfare, whatever it's called, looks really, really fun. A lot of people were blowing up on Twitter going, well, what is this? This is so strange. I can't believe they've gone off with this. But you know what? I think it's a case of EA has looked at Borderlands, and they've looked at fun, insane, ridiculous weaponry, over-the-top co-op combat, and they've gone, well, how can we make something like that? And I think that Plants vs. Zombie game could be incredibly good fun to play online. And I think that that's the thing you have to look at. A lot of people saying, well, I can't believe they've led off with this, with Battlefield, blah, blah, blah. Now, forget that. How much fun would it be? How much will you giggle and laugh with your mates playing a game like that online? I think it looks fantastic. I think it looks really, really cool. I will be annoyed if it's an Xbox One exclusive. I don't think it will be an Xbox One exclusive for long. I mean, particularly if PS4 has a massive install base, I think they will port it in the end. Mirror's Edge 2... It's not really Mirror's Edge 2. Apparently it's a revamp of Mirror's Edge, but it's another Mirror's Edge, so whatever. And anything else? I would have loved to have seen something about Mass Effect. Battlefield looks insane. You can bring down buildings now. We're in China, apparently. I think we're in Singapore. No, not Singapore. It's not China. Sorry, Shanghai. And so that will look great. Anything else I was particularly excited by? I really like the look of Knack, actually. You know, there's not enough. There's been a real dearth of old, fun, retro, colourful puzzle, platform games on PS and on Microsoft over this last generation. If there have been anything like that, it's been in the indie it's been from the indie scene. So the idea of a big budget, first party, first ever game announced to the PS4, by the way, of course, which just looks really colourful. And you know, the first game I bought for the Genesis was Sonic. I miss colourful, beautiful platform games, and that looks great. And I will buy Knack day one. You know, all the bundles at the moment are like Killzone and Drive Club and Shoot Man game, but actually Knack is much more interesting to me because I'm a bit bored of shooters. I will get Battlefield 4 for the PS4 probably because I just like the idea of the multiplayer. I don't really play single player games anymore. well, single player shooters because they're just a bit boring. But that looks really, really interesting. Anything else? Watch Dogs, yeah, because why would you not play Watch Dogs? The methods to play that they give you in this game look amazing. So the idea that, and they showed a sort of a demo where you have to get a guy out of a building. You can either go into the building and shoot everybody, or you can go into the building and sneak him out, or you can just stay outside the building and hack all the systems and get him to move out. And you know, it's almost like, do you know what? There are lots and lots of different ways of approaching this problem. It's basically Deus Ex. Yeah, it's pretty much Ubisoft's attack on Deus Ex and saying, look, well, you think Deus Ex is good? Well, look at Watch Dogs. We can do so much better. Watch Dogs is going to sell a megaton of copies when it comes out. It's the most exciting game in the world right now. I think it's even more exciting than GTA 5, partly because it is next gen. And yeah, I think E3 has been really, really interesting. The only other game which really caught my eye was... I think it's called Murdered Soul Survivor. It's a Square Enix game. Everyone obviously went mad for Square Enix for, you know, Kingdom Hearts 3 and Final Fantasy and that sort of stuff. But Murdered looks like a really clever game. Detective game where you, as a ghost, effectively try to discover who murdered you and why. And in a world when there aren't enormous numbers of new IPs, but when they do appear, people go mad for them, as shown by Watch Dogs. You know, remember the response last year? When they showed that off the first time, people went mad for it. I think it looks really, really, really good. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what does come to next-gen consoles, because I think there's a huge amount that they can do. They can do as much, you know, we can have these wonderful, beautiful indie games. Blizzard stuff is coming. There is a rumour that we might get StarCraft 2 on PS4. That would be amazing, although I'm not sure that the PlayStation control pad is really... suited to. I mean, if they effectively allows you to, you know, use an IR keyboard to interface with the PS4, then that would fix that problem. I think that would be a really good idea, actually. I think, well, there you go, son. You can do that. Create a keyboard for the PS4, and you know, to give us the ability to interface with PC games. Anything else that really caught my eye? Witcher looks great, but we knew about that. I think that's it. So yeah, my takeaways from E3, PS4, XBONED, Castlevania looks amazing. Oh, Metal Gear Solid 5 looks incredible. I have that, yeah, sorry, I completely forgot about that. That trailer, with that in that Fox engine, running, I know it was at the Xbox conference, and I can't imagine how much money they paid Kojima to appear there, but But MGS5 just looks sensational, and seeing that, you know, getting that when it comes to PS4 is just going to be it looks incredible. I've never played an MGS game. I'm sorry, I'm sad to say, or I'm ashamed to say, but that looks just beautiful. Anything else? No, I think that's it. So yeah, XBONED, PS4, Castlevania FTW, Metal Gear Solid FTW, Murdered Soul Survivor, Knack, Drive Club, PS Plus, 350 quid, $399, Fardon Matric. Have a great day, ladies and gents, and I will see you again soon.